Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay.
So we have,
You know, on Discord, if you do stuff, it'll show stuff on the screen.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes it does that here. If I do that, sometimes.
I don't think Attendees does that.
Yeah. Oh, it does sometimes, and sometimes it's very bad though, and it does it when we're not.
What can you do? Anything? I don't know. Hey guys.
Hi. So hello, Jess and Hussain and Jen and Adama.
Hello.
Hello. All right. So to start, I guess we could start doing updates. I don't know. I know Adama, I think, wanted to do an update, and Hussain wanted to do an update. So why don't we start?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have some courses, so I don't have the time to finish my presentation, but I did some stuff, so it will. So yeah, just let me find a way to. You see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So thank you for listening to me. My project is about create a VR platform for students, and then find a way to assess whether the student is focusing or not, and maybe try to assess flow state. Here is an idea of the design. So basically, for the context, we have like a robot who's traveling around the space. He's amnesic, so the goal of this robot is like to learn again how to code, because his functionment is based on writing code with his mind, but he forgot it. He has a friend who know from his friend. I have to introduce it in the game, but the friend know how to code, but can't actually code, so he has to teach to the robot how to code. And the first task would be like to avoid some meteorites by dragging drop and drag some text code, like here on Python script adapted IGE. So for the next task, he will eventually land to another planet, and he will have to manage multiple tasks, and he will learn some other concept of coding. So there is 3 main subjects that I want to implement for the person who use the application will learn. He will learn like basic coding. The first thing is to move the robot and to move the spaceship. He will learn how to print by communicating with the person from the planet. The loop concept and some basic arithmetic and data type concept, and then learn how conditional statement like if, else, if, and else. So for the part where I have to collect data, I thought about multiple ways, like analytic data inside the VR headset, like recording the time to solve a task, look the force response, and then make a basic test after some session to have an idea about the knowledge retention. make a questionnaire about the feeling and the impression to try to assess if the student were or not in the flow state. And then I wanted to implement, like, for example, a bubble that the student has to pop each time he sees a bubble, just to have an idea if he's focused or not, and if he notices the bubble or not. So, like, an external signal that he has to focus, but it's not he's not it is not mandatory to focus on it, but it's just to have an idea if he's focused or not. So I'm sorry I didn't finish this slide, but for the moment I made some stuff on Unity. Finally, I didn't choose Unreal Engine because I have to make a school project, and my mate wanted to use Unity, so I decided to use Unity for this project too, because it would be easier for me to handle these two projects at the same time. And for example, for the moment, I'm handling some stuff on Unity and MetaXR, and in the other hand, I'm doing the visual thing on Blender, and I try to connect the thing together. So yes, I think I finished my little presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, you're starting out with the basic design, and you have, so the robot is trying to learn different things. And you're trying to assess both its learning and then its focus using this distractor that is introduced. And it's sort of, the idea would be a focus would be like where you don't respond to the distractor, you respond to it. I mean, I guess you'd have to figure out which one it is. But the focus is like learning things versus being distracted by other things. Or I guess learning rate would be one of the things that, yeah. So yeah, it looks like a good design. And then of course you are creating the assets. You said you had some assets that you were working on, kind of putting into a repository.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't push the asset on Zenodo for now, but I think I will do just after the meeting of today.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, the point there was just to make sure that everything is backed up, so you don't lose it. And it seems paranoid, but you never know. And but to have like some backup and ability to, because it's hard to manage assets in developing like VR apps and things like that. You have a lot of assets. Sometimes they're a huge number of files. Sometimes the files are very large, and so you asked me the question in Slack about managing assets, and I said, there's this. Last year we had to try to figure out a way to do it. We did some, we used Zenodo. GitHub is hard because you can't upload files of a certain size, and so yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. But there may be other better ways, but we haven't explored those. So yeah, that's great. Did we have any questions for Adama about her presentation? Okay.
No, not really. Just are you? This isn't really a question for now, but more of a longer term question. But are you going to want to store certain things like on? We'll get to it later, but just more like maybe just how to use GitHub for some of these things versus not. And like obviously you can't really put everything on there, so we'll come back to that later. I guess we'll go over that later today.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's a presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Adama. So Hussain, would you like to present or give an update?
Sure, I can present today, or I can hold up until tomorrow, Saturday.
You can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jesse had messaged that perhaps it would have been better to. Okay, yeah.
It's more. it looks like only Adama's here today. I just wanted to make sure if there are other people who wanted to present that we had given
Yeah,
time.
and also this
but it looks like we
but
have. So yeah.
Paola wanted to get on board with this one, and it doesn't look like she's here right now. But I can talk. I was talking about the ethical considerations for AI-assisted closed-loop neurostimulation paper, right? But this isn't about GSoC. It's not about things like that. Or I can present on the breast cancer project under Richard, under Dick Gordon. So what's relevant for me to talk about?
Yeah, we might talk about the ethical considerations tomorrow, and then
Okay, so
breast cancer
we can talk about it tomorrow, but I can just briefly tell everybody. Yeah, so this is a paper I'm trying to get together, a literature review / analysis / data collection of trying to determine what are the ethical considerations for AI-assisted closed-loop neurostimulation technology. Okay, basically, if you can think of neurostimulation for treatment of things like seizures with a closed-loop device that records the brain activity and provides stimulation to reduce the seizure frequency over time. Normally, it's regulated by a person, like I guess they'd be a researcher or a psychiatrist, someone with the appropriate training, and to leverage that to AI, to artificial intelligence. What would be the ethical considerations that need to be involved there too? So, what sort of transparency? Like the patient's concerns about the device capabilities, about when an AI that is in charge of medical practice and medical procedure, what would need to be going on there too. So, yeah, happy to get a paper on board with this and see where things go. I know everybody's busy with Google Summer of Code. Everyone's busy with other things, and I am too. With the company, with the startup I'm working at, by the way, things are really taking off. So, that's what I want to present. So,
That's great. What about the breast cancer paper? Did you?
yeah, so that's an entirely different project. And we are getting papers together on it. So I'm getting some write-ups. So that's another project I'm working on. So this is under Dr. Richard Gordon. He's a theoretical biologist at University of Manitoba, and he's also been involved with the Open Worm and Java Worm projects with Bradley. So Dick and I have been working on the on some advanced computational approaches for computed tomography, a popular breast cancer detection method. So with breast cancer, you think people normally use things like ultrasounds, mammograms, CT computed tomography is one approach. And among all these approaches, computed tomography is definitely held back a lot by just more technical, technical issues that it can be inefficient, maybe it's not so accurate. We're developing AI and machine learning technologies to absolutely make things much more efficient, much more effective, and much more easier in the long run, particularly taking advantage of these approaches of steering X-rays themselves using the physics of Janospheres technology. So it takes a lot of calculations, a lot of simulations work, and a lot of the models can be tested using things like Blender. We're actually switching over to Unreal. We're not using Blender anymore because Unreal is a lot better. And this is kind of like meant to be a bit on the download, but I can share with you guys. It is technology that could potentially be patented to create a startup too. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the update. And that's all kind of DevoWorm related, so it's kind of adjacent to what we're doing in the orthogonal lab, but we kind of cross over, but yeah, that's great. And then of course there are all these issues, not just with like open source and a lot of the research aspect, but we also have things involving like technology transfer and intellectual property and stuff like that. So, and then maybe we'll get into some of those topics in future weeks, but for now we'll just kind of leave it as a tantalizing bit. So yeah, thank you, Hussain.
It looks like we have Sarrah and Shubham here also.
Yeah.
So and Himanshu's here too. Great. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody who wanted to speak could do so earlier in the meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else wanted to present or give updates since they joined the meeting. So glad you're here.
Yeah. So welcome Himanshu and Shubham and Sarrah. Did you want to give an update, any of you, or?
I don't have a presentation or anything right now, but I've been, working on a reinforcement learning project for my university. So that has, given me a lot of, experience with working with Petting Zoo. That is a multi-agent platform reinforcement learning and also stable baselines 3. So I have enough experience and knowledge now to start working from Monday on the project, and I'll be setting up the repository. For now, I have decided to work on the reinforcement learning part, at least for the June month and the entire June month. And after July, maybe according to my proposal, we had an active inference as well. So if I can work on it under Jesse and Himanshu. So I'll be working on the active inference part, but for now I'll be working on the future scope of the project that you had last year. That is integrating an RL algorithm into the agent-based model for open source sustainability. So yeah, I'll be starting the work from Monday.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it's great. We have we have a number of different approaches that we sort of started out with in open source sustainability. Of course, reinforcement learning models, which are quite popular. People like reinforcement learning, and I think it's very promising. Himanshu developed that one, and we've been working on that. We worked on that last year with RV Raj, and then this year, Shubham will be working on that. That's always interesting to see where that can go. And then the active inference, which was Brian McCorkle, who worked on that, and then it hasn't really been worked on since. So there's a lot there that's kind of. I think Brian took a first pass at it, and then he, tried to. We have a sort of a relationship with the Active Inference Institute. So this is a group that's online, just like we are, and they do a lot of things with like promoting active inference. And Brian, kind of got involved in that group, and he kind of took the lessons from that and built a model. So there are a lot of notebooks that are available in the GitHub repo. There, but those are kind of a first pass. So yeah, it would be very good to have like a second pass at it to sort of say, okay, this is what the model looks like. I don't know if we have. Maybe I should go over the ResearchGate article that we have on the open source sustainability project. But we have an article on ResearchGate. It's a preprint on open source sustainability, so it kind of goes over all the different approaches we took in the first year, and it's not been updated for the second year, but it basically lays out all the different models that we have. So I can post that in the Slack for Sarrah and Shubham to go over, because I don't think they've seen this paper. But this is, again, it's just kind of an outline of what, especially for the active inference model, because it describes kind of how an active inference model works and how it's being applied to open source sustainability, because that's not necessarily straightforward. It's actually quite, it's kind of difficult to wrap your head around it. But no, I'm glad, Shubham, that you're taking taking the initiative on some of these things, and we'll have to plan out kind of maybe what needs to be done in terms of issues and things like that. And talk to Himanshu, because Himanshu, of course, did a lot of the first pass of the reinforcement learning model.
Yeah, Shubham, feel free to talk to me anytime. We can have a meet and discuss.
Yeah. Right, thanks.
Yeah. Also, just as a note, if people want to talk to former mentors or past project stuff and have meet separately, not right now or not during the Saturday meeting, you can do that. It's kind of encouraged to do, especially Himanshu is a tremendous resource for that. And other also people have worked on. There are people in the lab still if anybody wants to talk to Rashali from last year, she's around. Like we can very. She comes to some of the Saturday meetings, and we are. She's in Slack, or we still. She's active on LinkedIn. Just because people aren't in this meeting or aren't posting all the time in the Slack or at the Saturday meetings when you're there, like there's a lot of resources available to you, and it's probably pretty good practice to try to like have some talks with the previous folks too. So I mean, definitely do that, and I would honestly, you know, like mention it in the Slack too, like hey, I like to talk about whatever, and you know, invite Himanshu, you can invite me, or you can invite Bradley. Maybe Bradley and I can't always make it, but it doesn't matter. Like just, we can definitely try to center it. So it's a very good thing to do, and I encourage that.
It's very good. Okay, do we have anyone else who wanted to give an update or?
Hello, am I audible?
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, sure. So I could go next with my update. So basically, like as I informed last week, like next week is the official first week of GSoC. But unfortunately, I will not be able to. I mean, I have my final semester exams, so I kind of did the first week of coding. I tried to do it this week. So I have some updates regarding that. I could share my screen. If
Okay.
That's possible.
Yeah.
So is that possible?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh my. Okay. So yeah, basically, like from my proposal, from the timeline of my proposal, the first week of my this talked about like kind of integrating a framework and to start building the LLM powered agent based model. So I wrote a blog on my literature review the past week, but another paper, like as I was kind of looking more in this domain, another great paper that I found was this. It's called Smart Agent Based Modeling on the Use of Large Language Models in Computer Simulations, and it kind of like bridged the gap between the LLM part and the agent based modeling part very nicely. So basically, like it kind of gave quite a nice step by step, like how you should start building a smart agent based model. And the first thing that it said to kind of do was create a design of the case study, create a design of the kind of model that you want to create. What are the kind of metrics that will be there, and what are the kind of the environment, what are the metrics that will be there in the environment, what is, if you're powering it using an LLM, what is kind of what should your LLM be able to do, what the LLM's ability should be, and how all of that would like basically interact with your entire agent-based model. So inspired from this, similarly, this is the model that I've kind of created for our for my project. So I could just give a short overview of this diagram. Basically, like I even last week I asked about the kind of metrics or things I should include, and this is sort of what I've come up with. So starting with the environment, basically I plan to have three things in our overall environment. Kind of a code space where which would sort of simulate GitHub. It won't be anything visual as such, but just sort of something in the code that would have like a list of issues that could be solved, which I think since we are targeting open source sustainability, one of the first things that I want to kind of target is the open source coding aspect, contributions aspect. Next is the next thing that I want to include in my environment is the relay chat. So like as I mentioned before, one of the main reasons for me using LLMs for this project, like Shubham is doing an RL and active inference approach, and the previous approaches have also been RL and active inference based. So kind of my reason to use LLMs is the fact that they can understand natural language, and a lot of open source communication, a lot of open source community interactions involve talking to each other. So I also hope to simulate some sort of a relay chat where these different agents from my model can kind of come and talk to, and that can affect the metrics of the open source community. And then a last thing that I hope to model, this is kind of it is kind of a subtask. Like basically the subtasks are the order in which I hope to approach this. The everything not colored is the initial base model, and then I plan to keep adding small improvements to it. So this is kind of the third subtask, but I hope to model something like an incentivized mentorship program, like a great example being GSoC itself. Basically, like the first base model would try to simulate the current contributors in the community and them sustaining, them keeping contributing, their levels increasing. And this would kind of try to include the dynamically added of agents issue. Like there is some sort of a mentorship program that could basically attract new contributors to the community, and then how are like they come via some sort of incentive. Like also what happens in GSoC, you come via the incentive of GSoC, but then how propelled are you to stay within the community? So these are three things that I hope to model within the environment. And next I can go to so next I can go to the preliminary requirement. Like this was also something that was mentioned in the paper I showed. I'll drop the link to the paper in the chat later. So basically, like the preliminary requirement is like if you plan to use an LLM to power this, what is what is the ability that the LLM should have to be able to be a agent in this. So currently the ability that I've recognized is like it should be able to understand the open source ecosystem, especially the talking to each other part, which like we know that LLMs are good at this, but I will be using open source models. So I do need to use a model that is capable enough of both conversing and writing code. So it should be equally capable in both. And so that would be the preliminary requirement of it. Another one way of preliminary requirement would be I hope to like instead of just using a direct LLM, I hope to like prompt engineer a LLM so that it can understand nuances like GitHub issues. Say if a GitHub issue addresses something and there are links dropped in the GitHub issue, then the LLM should be able to kind of go to that link and read the data from that link. And LLMs can do this like using external API tools. So I hope I can try to kind of model that part, and that would make a good agent. And then next is the like actual agent part, like the agent-based model over here on the right. So we can start like this is the legend for the different components that I've used. So I can explain the components first. Basically, starting from an agent, it should have these four like going from an LLM to an agent requires that it have these extra perception and action abilities. So these are kind of that. Domain knowledge is, as I said, the kind of prompt engineering / fine tuning that I hope to do to kind of make this LLM aware about open source good practices, say, or say nuances related to GitHub. Then the fact that it should be able to code, because that is like something that I hope to utilize throughout the project, and assign it with a memory, because it should like kind of remember what what experiences it has had previously. Like say if it submitted some code and it was not of good quality, it should remember that to be able to better it next time. And then also the capability of learning. This is a little different. This learning is a little different than what most of you might be familiar with in RL or ML scenarios. It's mostly iteration based learning. But with LLMs, they're already pre-trained and they already have a lot of knowledge. So mostly the kind of learning here would be one shot or few shot learning, where basically you would kind of just give an example to the LLM of what it should do in certain scenarios. Like if someone points out mistakes in your code, take it positively and better your code. So some kind of like good practices or basic. So it should have the ability to learn from these few short examples, because throughout when I actually start modeling, I'll be like a lot of the prompt engineering will involve few short examples. Then the next part is something that is like a part of subtask 1. So I'll come to the personalization part later. I'll complete the base model first. So next is the like as I said, the environment. So going from the environment, what are like how exactly I hope to model these three things in the environment in the form of the variables. So basically a list of issues, like I hope to have a list of issues to model the kind of code space with like assignment status, whether they're assigned, or the experience level that would be required to assist with this issue. So I even remember that like even in Himanshu's project last year, the issues are kind of categorized as moonshot, earthshot. So similar to that, I hope to have like a kind of like there are some issues that not a beginner can do. So model that somehow. And then basically different metrics to kind of, because the end goal is to understand how sustainable this environment, this community is. So I kind of, the next three are kind of environment variables that are sort of metrics of say code productivity. So the number of comments that are happening to that code space, the number of pull requests, the code quality of the code that is being submitted. All of these metrics could contribute to code productivity. Then community metrics such as how many contributions are taking place, and engagement, the number of engagement, like via the IRC or via people reviewing code on, so like voluntary engagement apart from contributions. And then also resource availability. So like as I mentioned, this incentivized mentorship program that I hope to add to the environment, this is kind of this will only be possible when a community has enough funding to provide the incentive and mentors to provide the mentorship. So those will also not be there in a community from start, but as the community grows, as more and more people become more engaged, it is natural that that will happen. So also some sort of metrics to kind of keep a track of that, and when the community can afford to hold an incentivized mentorship program. And then next, like after defining, yes, I'll also come to the personalization part. Like this is a subtask because I plan to add this later on, but like basically these are similar to how we have environment variables for what the environment is modeling. These are also some kind of these are the like the internal states or the belief states that I talked about earlier that each agent has. So this is kind of my way of simulating those for each agent. So like the first would be its experience level, and this is what would actually increase. Like most agents would start out as novices, but then they would soon become contributors, and then they could also progress to the maintainer of the open source community. So that would be experience level. And then I also have like 4 other metrics, like similar to I had referred humanoid agents, a paper called humanoid agents a lot as well. So what they'd done to kind of model that was basically like what is the energy of an agent, what is the fun capability of an agent. and those things like basically change. So similarly for in the relation of open source, I have tried to model knowledge, engagement level, motivation, and commitment. And basically, so I will have these metrics from the start, but the subtask part comes from like initially I will be kind of giving random values to these metrics. Say there could be anything between 1 to 5, and I would have them randomly assigned. But what I hope to do later on is initialize these based on a personal backstory, so to make each agent subjective, not just objective. So basically, if we plan on taking real data from anywhere, or even if we just kind of want to make our agents as diverse as possible, because it is LLMs, you could just give it some prompt, it could create a backstory based on it, and then it could actually initialize these metrics based on that. Like, say someone who is a college student, whose reason for getting involved in the community is that they have used that product, that open source product a lot, and they want to get involved and contribute back. So for someone like that, the motivation and commitment would definitely be high, but then the knowledge would not be that high since they are a college student. So based on these like personal things, we can kind of model these metrics. And then next, the two things that I've tried to model here are agent communication and agent environment communication. So for agent environment communication, basically the whole part of like how the code space works, this is kind of the explanation for that. So as I said, there will be a list of issues, and based on that, like if an agent wants to work on that issue, they could just say they want to work on the issue, and basically the issue would be assigned. Obviously, some things to kind of look at here is what happens if two agents try to get the same issue assigned to them. So there are two ways I could go about it. I could have them talk to each other and decide whether to collaborate or do it individually, let one of them do it. And then also, like, the most basic way for these issues to be assigned would be based on experience level. Like, the beginners do the easy issues and the experienced people do the hard issues. Once the agent has taken an issue assigned to themselves, they would write some code. That code would go into the code review. So the code review would basically be open, and any agent which is at a higher experience level than them can review their code. And this is also something that we've seen, like even in LLMs itself, they often write bad code, but if we have another LLM instance evaluate that code, it eventually improves. And this is used a lot in like current, when they use LLMs to try to make software developer systems. So utilizing that same idea, basically in a loop, the two agents could like kind of write and review code until it reaches a acceptable stage, and then the maintainer of the org, if they decide to accept it, that issue would be resolved. And once that issue is resolved, this would update various states from both the environment as well as the agent. Like the agent states would update, so the knowledge, engagement level, say they solved a good issue and they learned something, their knowledge would update. So based on that, then the community metrics would also update, like because an issue is resolved, obviously there would be more there would be a commit, there would be more contributions. And then similarly the code productivity, so like based on the code quality of this code and other things, the code productivity would also update. And then similarly the agent communication, so this is primarily kind of modeling the IRC chat thing, where I plan to have the IRC as like if we have multiple agents, so I wanted such that any agent who is deciding that right now I want to talk in the IRC, they will have like a flag that they can basically just use to set themselves as online in the IRC. And if they once they set that to online, they can retrieve all the chat history from the IRC. So now the way this would work is, so this is again like implementing conversation is again a subtask. It is a second subtask after personalization. So once I do implement that, like storing the IRC chat history, so I can't just give all the chat history in plain text to the LLM, because that would overflow its context length. So I hope to use something called retrieval augmented generation, RAG, where it basically stores it into a database and the agent can kind of query that database. So say if it's something that the agent wants to ask, if that is something that is already been asked earlier, then they can just retrieve the earlier answer, or they can go ahead and ask that question in the IRC. So they would retrieve the chat history, they would come to know what is happening in the IRC. Then based on that, the agent would speak in the IRC, and whatever they would speak would again be added to the IRC chat history. And based on this entire agent-agent communication flow, again, we would have our metrics update, like because they are communicating in the IRC, their engagement would increase. The agents that respond, their engagement would increase. And then similarly, the community metrics would increase, and resource availability, like more engagement would enable more people to become a mentor status, like when they resolve doubts. They would enable them to become mentor status, and that would again increase the number of mentors in the community. And then based on all of these, like the end condition for the simulation would be either based on the number of iterations, or like all issues are resolved, for like all the issues that were there are resolved. So this is kind of the model that I've come up with. And like in the coming weeks I'll be trying to model it. So for the second week I'll be trying to kind of set up the basic framework. I did some research on frameworks this week, and I realized some pros and cons of each, but I still have to kind of test them out. So once I do that and kind of start at least testing these like preliminary requirements for the LLMs, I have currently, like, I've set up Olama, which is a software that allows me to run LLM models locally. But then these LLMs are very like they're not as great as like they're a lot of them are kind of good enough and comparable to ChatGPT, but they have drawbacks such as the context length or other things. So I have to kind of check their abilities once, because they are like 4 GB models to be able to run on my local computer. So yeah, that will kind of be what I hope to do in the second coding week, which will be the week after next to my exams. So if anybody has any questions.
Yes, please, if you have questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I just have a question.
Yeah,
Pardon me, I don't have a lot of experience with LLMs, but you talked about reinforcement learning, where agents learn on the go about the the community metrics or the code productivity. But in case of LLMs, the agents have prior knowledge. So prior knowledge, as in where are they getting this data or knowledge from? I don't understand that part. Like, because
like
I've
it's
never
not
worked on LLM
exactly.
before. Uh-huh.
Oh, right, sure. Like it's not exactly knowledge in that sense, but it's the fact that so this is kind of very different from the RL agent-based models that we've dealt with before. Like, so simple example I can give you that I think would be better to explain it would be this, like this paper from this paper here. So there's something very simple, like they have a simple example where just one second. It does not want to control F for me. Okay. Okay, I'll just go here. This is not a that much simple example, but okay, great. So, okay, so basically one of the toy examples that they used to kind of explain the whole smart agent-based modeling. Like earlier, it was just agent-based modeling, introducing LLMs made it smart. So this is kind of the really great example that they used. Basically, they said that we'll have two agents play a number guessing game, and the number was basically 28, and these are the guesses that the other agent made to guess this number. So first it guessed 50, and the kind of, so like it was 28, so the first guess was 50. The response it got was that this guess is higher than the answer. Then it guessed 25, and the response it got was this guess is lower than the answer. So now if I wanted to model this in an RL scenario, I would have to have all these mathematical equations, right? Like I would have to have some reward for guessing the answer right. I would have to say that if the current guess is higher than the answer, then remove all the higher ones from your state space. Like if you say that the guess 50 is higher than 28, you never try to guess 51, right? As a human, you know that. So, but for an RL agent, I would kind of have to model all of this mathematically. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
But the great thing with so the great thing with LLMs is that they're trained on so much human data that, like, if you've used ChatGPT, it can basically write code for you. So it is all of this was done in like the first shot. Like once you tell the LLM that this guess is higher than the answer, it never tries to guess anything above 15 later. In fact, what they noticed was for the first 4 guesses, what this LLM is doing is exactly similar to binary search. Like once it was told 50, it directly jumped to 25, and it tried to eliminate half of the sample space completely. So, like, this is what I mean by this domain knowledge, that they're pre-trained on so much information that, like, on like humans, that all of these things, like how to talk in natural language, and a lot of coding related concepts, they just know. So what they did later was they just prompted it with the word binary search. They said you can use binary search to optimize your guess. They didn't have to give it the algorithm for binary search. And after that, it always used binary search. So the similar way, when I say that I want to kind of give this domain knowledge to my agents, all I'll be telling it is that you are a contributor in an open source community. You have this much experience with coding. You can do this, and these are some open source good practices. And based on that, it will just sort of inherently be able to understand and write code, review code, understand its role as a maintainer. Like this is something called as like role-based agents, where for an LLM you just say that this is your role and that is how it acts. So that was what I meant. That helps. Like that is also how the learning comes in. That like you give it one example and it just understands what you want it to.
Yeah, that looks great. I had a question about the agent variables, or a comment. So the red box there is agent variables, and we have 4 things there: knowledge, motivation, engagement level, and commitment. And I wanted to point out that those things, some of those things link to some of the other models. So engagement level, you have, or motivation for one, is heavily dependent on reinforcement learning. And you can model different motivation mechanisms through reinforcement learning. And I think, that would be great to look at. Knowledge, of course, with your active inference model, maybe as well as commitment, because as I recall, the way that Brian had set up the active inference model, was a matter of coordinating behaviors and having sort of the knowledge to do that. So, basically the active inference model, it coordinates behaviors and then it finds like the minimal energy for that in the ensemble of different agents. So it does that in a number of different ways. Uses like a Markovian type model for that. But those, and then engagement level, that even links to what Adama was talking about with hyperfocus, that you have this level of engagement. It's about attention and focus of the people, whether you're off doing other things or whether you're really focusing in on what you're trying to do. So I think, this is great that you have this kind of a setup, because it can link to other models and other things going on. And even like the personality models that Hussain was working on in the first year, that can link to some of these things as well, where we have, once we have the agent, the different behaviors it's doing or what it's modeling. And we don't really have a strong linkage between models yet. So that's something that is also a need for the project. Okay. Thank you, Sarrah. That was a very good presentation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I know Pakhi wanted to present something and then had to rejoin.
Just
Yeah.
like you also talked about a graph for the sustainability part, like after doing the models thing.
Right.
Okay. I've also
So like
written a few. Yeah, you can share.
yeah, basically like the way that I plan to like LLMs is not exactly visualizable like all the RL models that we have. We could see the agents moving around and such. But for the way that I hope to visualize like how is this community actually sustainable, so like basically plotting these different metrics like based on these agents contributions, how do these different metrics differ, like that is kind of what I have in my mind as a way to kind of visualize and show the sustainability in the form of plots.
Yeah, and like so adding the subtasks would like theoretically improve the environment simulation, right? So it would be
Right,
a
right,
incremental step.
right.
Okay.
Exactly. Like I hope that like I can have these graphs for all different like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 kind of, and you can see how the model kind of improves. Exactly.
Okay. Like, and I'm pretty sure we have been through Chatev, right?
Yes, yes, it was one of the
Yeah.
papers I referred.
Yeah, so Chatev also has some metrics that they used for like their coding agents. So there was like statistical analysis. It is not actually pertaining to LLM agents or like a lot of companies also use statistical analysis to basically show the productivity levels of what their engineers are doing. So that also could be a metric that you can basically verify and check if you can use it in your and it can also serve as a verification for the belief states that you mentioned. So if you have a agent that you're modeled as a maintainer, so obviously like not obviously like it can have a better statistical analysis result like on average, something like that.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, and Himanshu linked a couple of things here. There's an archive paper on ChatDev, and then there's another archive paper on SABM. So this is, if you want to read about those are the links.
Yeah, though SABM is the paper that she actually presented, so that is
Okay. Yeah, that one here. Yeah, so those two papers. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Pakhi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry for joining late, but I wanted to share a few things I did over the last week.
Okay.
So basically, I used some models from the DevoLearn repository, and I would like to show you the results. One moment.
All right.
So actually, I was like I mentioned in the previous meeting, I was planning to find the centroids of different cells, which I could use for mapping them into the graph neural network. So in the DevoLearn, within the DevoLearn models, the centroid, they use the generate centroid image. Within it, they have used the OpenCV package, but with the help of it, I was not able to get like the contours were getting merged of the cells that were too close by. So instead, I used the scikit-learn package, and like with that is like relatively basic. Early already there, but now I think I'll have to use this one. And also I DevoLearn as a pip package because I think there is some problem in the requirements.txt. Like there they have like sklearn has been mentioned within like the txt file, but I think it's out of date, and in place of that we are using scikit now. Like it doesn't install sklearn anymore with the current pip version, so I had to actually fork the repo and update the requirements.txt and then use it. So like I wanted to ask how I will be able to like use the DevoLearn model there. Because now I'm currently using the whole repository, like functions within the repository to generate the centroids and all.
Okay.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to ask was like, I was trying to segment, like I was thinking if we could segment these even like more clearer so that each of the cells are like separate, so the contours are like more differentiable. So I was going through the cells model, but like I was not able to really understand. Like I was using the
It's like Pakhi got dropped or something.
Yeah, there's been some network issues, which is
Okay.
tough.
Well, okay, so I don't know if she's going to log out or come back in, but yeah, so yeah, we have, I guess the answer to some of those questions. I don't know if I should wait till she gets back in, but so yeah, okay. So yeah, that was great, Pakhi. I guess the answer to some of the questions, yeah, is that when we do cell segmentation, we can run the package. Sometimes we have to do things like pre-process the images before we put them into the algorithm. So like there isn't enough information, I don't think, in the documentation about this, but you have to try different types of masks and things like that sometimes, depending on the data set, to get a good image. It's just like if you think about you're trying to find features in an image that is not easily, if you gave it like something that had a very strong pattern in it, you could probably pick out the features with no problem. It's harder to do it in a microscopy image because you have, this plane of focus that you're in, and so some of the features are sort of incomplete, or they get blurry at the edges, or you get things in the way, like different types of biological artifacts. Sometimes, so there's a lot there that can interfere with the ability of the algorithm to sort of pick out the features that you want. So you have to do some pre-processing, and this is kind of the problem that this is why this kind of like cell segmentation problem is so hard, because it's like you have to do all this pre-processing. You have to figure out what features are the easiest to extract and things like that. So all I can say is like we've done this every year when we've done work with some of these data sets. That being said, I mean, I wouldn't worry so much about perfecting that. Just get a method that works well, and just start, getting some segmentation. See what you can get. Yeah, and then the other thing is, of course, the toolboxes are always in flux. It's always hard to find the right requirements and things like that. So please, if you're working on a package on GitHub, please, if you have something to update, make a pull request and make sure that it gets pushed, because if people work on the project in subsequent years, or if they work on it, or if someone else works on it, they'll have that information. That's one of the things about open source, is that we like to have information shared instead of in someone's head or in someone's notes. So yeah, well, thank you, Pakhi, for that update. I wanted to go over a few things before we end the meeting. So Pakhi shared her
sorry,
collab.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I had one last question.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, if I need to segment the images again, because in Himanshu's work from last year, this repo called GSoC 2023, there is a folder called dataset which has the final segmentation map. So I wanted to ask if I can use the same as the dataset for my network. So should I like start from scratch and like segment it again and all?
Oh, I think you can probably use the segmentation maps. I mean, if we're not doing the focus of the project isn't really about like segmenting images. So if that's something that you,
and
yeah,
very well segmented. So I wanted to ask if I can use the same.
yeah, I would use those. Yeah, but if you know, you may need to
Okay.
segment other things too. So if you need to do that, then you know. But I would really kind of because you know you could get bogged down in perfecting segmentation techniques, and that's not what we want to do. We want to do the other stuff. So we should use those maps and then go forward on that.
All right. Thanks.
All right. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff there. So yeah, we have Pakhi's Colab notebook, and be sure to push that to GitHub as well. So, oh, go ahead, Jesse. Did you want to say something?
Oh no, I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay, all right. So a word about that. I sent out invites to people. I don't know what Adama's GitHub account is. I don't know if she has a GitHub account that she wants me to invite her to, but I've invited people to different repositories. So Pakhi and Mehul are invited to, yes, one set of repositories, and Sarrah and Shubham and Adama are invited to another set of repositories. So what Jesse's showing here is the OREL group GitHub, and that's for Sarrah, Adama, and Shubham. And so this, so where are we? Where's our repository for GSoC?
So this one here also have the board here, but
yeah.
Here's the main board. And if you want to do this.
Oh well, yeah. Just yeah. I'll take from your screen share. But so this is the GSoC repository. So I invited, I invited you, the three of you, to the entire organization. So you have management permissions on the entire organization, but we'll be working mainly in this GSoC repository. So, we have a number of repositories, or a number of directories. We have open source sustainability, we have GSoC 2024, we have VR for research. So if I were working on open source sustainability, I would try to push things to this open source sustainability folder or directory. So you would fork the GSoC repository. You put in your work to this, give it a name and then push it. And so the reason I'm stressing using these organizational repositories is that it just keeps everything in one place. So we have some things now for Adama. You might want to work on pushing your work to like some sort of other repository for the VR stuff, but you still might want to push things to GitHub. So I want to be able to invite you to this. There are other not assets, but other types of code and notes that you might want to keep in one of these repositories. The key here is that just if you want to make a contribution, if you want to have things in a certain repository, wherever it is, please fork that repository and then make a pull request, and then we can get. So Himanshu just said that the LLM repository probably needs its own place. And for that, we might put that in this GSoC repository, but like in a different directory. So an LLM directory, which we don't have right now. But that could be just something that you create. We could use GitLab too for the assets as well. So GitLab is another tool. It's gitlab.com. Yeah, GitLab, not GitHub. So this is, Jesse will bring up GitLab.
Cool.
We'll do
I don't know
is.
necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't have anything in it right now.
Oh
This-
yeah. So
I'm
the,
not gonna pop into it.
yeah. So this is all like this is another option we can use. Again, this is for I think assets, but I would like to keep the main GSoC stuff in GitHub in our repositories. So this is for our two DevoWorm people, and this is where we're going to go to DevoGraph, and that's where we're going to have things pushed. So we have the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. We're working on stage 2 and stage 3, but I think for GSoC, we would want to create like a personal directory there, and then you'd push your work to DevoGraph, a pull request, and we would accept the pull requests and try to do this on a regular basis. Ideally, it would be every week when we have a meeting, either the Friday meeting or for DevoWorm, the Monday meeting, try to make a pull request around that time. And, just this is a way to keep all of your things sort of backed up, but also so that you can easily share them with the community and get, have things organized. And so, at the end of the coding period, we're going to have, it's going to be a requirement that you have everything in a location where you can, where the people at Google can look at it and run it. They can clone the repository and run whatever it is that you're submitting. And we'll talk about how to submit things later, but basically you need to have everything in order and then have it be able to compile or them understand what you did. So this is why we do all this organizational work now to get that done. So check your email for invites for those repositories, and then set up where you want to be, what your home is in there. And I would make in the GSoC OREL group GSoC, I would make an LLM folder and then push things there. But you can do it any way you want. But then I'll get an email telling me where things have been pushed, and then hopefully we can I'll accept the pull requests as they come in, so we can review some of these things at the meetings. The other thing I have, I've made some boards. So this is for DevoWorm. We have DevoGraph. So we'll kind of open these up if we want to do this in the Friday meeting or in the Monday DevoWorm meetings. We can review these issues. Basically, what I want you to do is I want you to, for your project, try to kind of come up with issues and put them on these boards. So this is for DevoGraph. And then we have another one for GSoC and open source development, which is the OREL group, GitHub organization. And so this is an example of how you make issues. You go down to add an item, you type in the item, you put it on the board, you turn it into an issue, and you have this issue here, they're numbered, and you can reference them. And what we'll do in the meetings is we'll open up the board and say, where are issues, what needs to be done, what's in progress, and what's done, and then we just move these around the board as they change. And it gives us an idea of what the scope is that we're actually dealing with from week to week, and what maybe isn't what may be in like the queue, what is in progress. If we have 5 things in progress, we have to kind of keep track of all those things. If we have one thing in progress, it's not so hard to do, but when we have more than that, it gets a little bit tough to sort of understand. And so, try to make these like, a reasonable size. So like if you're doing something, just make an issue, but we want to go and review them and see if maybe we need to break them into 2 issues or combine things into 1 issue or move them around the board accordingly. So we'll be using this in coming weeks to manage some of the workflow. Now, our coding period starts Monday, as many of you are aware. And so I want people to sort of focus on the coding now. We've had the community period going on for a couple weeks, and I think people have gotten a sense of the community, which is great. We need to start focusing on the coding and, follow along in the way that you want. Yes, Himanshu said all the best for the coding period. Congratulations. And then we have a couple things I wanted to point out. So Google Summer of Code has a blog. They have actually Google has an open source blog, and this is the 20th year of Google Summer of Code. So it started in 2004, and we're in 2024, and so it's the 20th anniversary of Google Summer of Code. So, this is where they've run the stats, and they've said that they've had over 19,000 new contributors to open source. There have been 19,000 plus mentors from over 800 open source organizations in a wide range of fields. This is just kind of telling you that this is a pretty robust program, that, it's a pretty time-honored program and so forth. They give some kind words about mentorship. Mentorship is a vital way to keep these new contributors coming into the open source ecosystem, where they can see collaboration at its finest from their community members all around the world. And so, this is, again, the things you're going to be learning during our coding period. You're going to be learning about all sorts of, sort of hands-on topics, like how to manage a workflow, how to, you're going to give your updates. We're going to make pull requests, but we're also going to talk about other topics that are relevant to project management and some of these other things. So I'm going to cover some of those topics in the meetings as well. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Jesse, did you have anything else to bring up before we go?
Can you share that link over here on the Slack, just so people can see that there's a 20th anniversary one you just showed? Just so I can put that somewhere. I'm going to use a link somewhere else.
I'll put it in the chat here.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to really briefly show the link. I've been mentioning this link. I'm just going to briefly show that. Now we're very over time, so I'm going to be super quick.
Okay.
Super quick. I'll just show the Notion thing. But I basically made this a website just so you can see it. This is a really simple start guide to make sure you have everything. You have stuff from Google, but this is sort of just from the cohort in general. I think everybody's in Slack, but if not, let us know. We can send you the invite again. Bradley is your main email contact. There's a bit about our meetings with the links here. If you forget them or need them, you can always ask for a one-on-one meeting or a side meeting. You can always go to our Saturday meetings too, but not everybody can. Great place to talk. I put a bunch of the GitHub things here, the Diva Worm, the OREL orgs, some of the repos, and a little bit more about deliverables and outputs. So this is sort of going to be a main thing. There's also, this will be the main, I put a little bit in this page too, but this is going to basically be the main page that, this is, give me your email and I'll have you so you can come to get access to this page. It's going to be our sort of internal hub for things. Like a bunch of resources and other links that aren't necessarily mandatory, but just stuff that you can have here in the past and some news and a little bit of a record of our meetings and stuff too. This is a bit in development. Jen's been helping with this, so thank you, Jen. But this start guide is kind of a quick thing to hand out now. So if you want to look at any small things or notes from how to kind of interact with us at a higher level, you can just check through this to make sure you got everything going on. That's the link I just posted. I'll put it in the Slack channel too. But that's it. I just wanted to mention that. I know we're a bit late, so we'll talk more about this next time in the project boards next time too.
All right. So yeah, thank you, Jesse.
I just had one doubt.
Okay.
Over there, we had two directories mentioned in the cohort, OREL summer cohort. So there's one cohort directory and there's another GSoC directory. So me as a cohort should commit to the cohort directory or the GSoC directory?
Well, I think for the orthogonal lab, we just have the GSoC so everyone in orthogonal lab, which is Shubham, Adama, and Sarrah, you're gonna just fork the GSoC or repo, and then you'll just make your own. So we're just going to use that. Doesn't really matter whether you're formally in the program or not. We'll just use everything in there. That's the easiest way to do it.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And again, if you're an open source development intern or whatever thing we decided to say, scholar. This is a very valuable period because you can work on projects and you're not as constrained as like a GSoC, formal GSoC person because, we have time. You can kind of spread out. You can explore new things if you want. And so this is going to be, I think, a good summer to make some progress in some of these projects. Okay, yeah, thank you for attending. And we'll have our Saturday meeting. We have our DVOR meeting on Monday, and so if we want to talk about GSoC there, we can.
Yep, and please share any slides or presentations or updates or even papers that we talked about that you find just put it all in the main Google Summer Code Slack channel. That's a great way to just be able to share things and talk about them there too. So yeah, see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have one last question.
Okay.
So will it be okay if I don't attend next week's meets? As I will have my exams going on during that period. If it's possible for me, I'll try to attend, but in case it's
Okay.
not, will that be fine?
Oh yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah. All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.